I'll give a few quotes of Baba and little stories, and just to kind of get it rolling here. There was one woman, some of you have heard this story, but there was one woman that used to come to the center from time to time. And her name was Anita Putalik. And we don't have any written record of her meetings with Baba, but I remembered this conversation I had with her. We were in the refectory. This is maybe 20 years ago. And she told me this, that she was, this is relevant to what we're talking about, the subject tonight, but she lived in New York, and she was with, even though she was a Christian devoted to Jesus, she was somehow got connected in with the Monday night group. The Monday night group was the famous Baba group in New York for, starting back in the 40s. And so she went to those meetings, and then she was a young woman, and then she went back to, I think, Wisconsin. And when word came that Baba was coming in 1956, they contacted her, maybe the Winterfelds contacted her and said, would you like to come and meet Baba? And so she, she was newly married and everything, but she somehow got the money and came to New York. And Baba was, I don't know if he was at Ivy Deuce's place, but whatever place, and he was about to give interviews. And she describes Adi, Baba gave this gesture for the first person to have their interview. Baba gave this gesture like this. I think a young woman, and he went like this. So he went out among all the people who were waiting in the waiting room for their interviews, and there was nobody that, he took it like some chubby woman, in there. He looked around, there was no one who fit that description, who was young. So he came back, and Baba again gestured, and he realized that it must be some woman who's pregnant. So he went in there and said, is there someone pregnant? And she raised her hand, and she was the first one to get an interview with Baba in 1956 on this occasion. And Baba, she was worried about this child, and she was going to have some complications with this child. She was worried about it, but Baba assured her that she did not have to worry, there would be no problems. And somehow, in the way Baba said it, she was completely relieved. Somehow Baba was so clear to her that she knew she had nothing to worry about. And then she went on to tell about her devotion to Jesus. And Baba, said, was very happy with that, but he said that she has to let go of, don't let rituals and ceremonies get in the way of her belief, of her, her spiritual life. And then Baba said this, this is the line I remember very well. Baba said, she was saying, talking about her life with Baba, but Baba said, but you have made one big mistake in your spiritual life. Now, this is the first time she's meeting Baba. You have made one big mistake in your spiritual life. You have put God in heaven, and until you find him in everyone you meet, your religion will always be lopsided. You have put God in heaven, but until you find him in everyone you meet, your religion will always be lopsided. And that became the theme of her life. And when you were with her, her focus on you was so one-pointed that it was just like you and her and the universe. I mean, it was like being with Kitty or being with the Mandali. She was so profoundly focused. So anyway, there Baba said, finding God in each other is part of it. We have Baba in ourselves, but that's not complete until we find Baba in others, in each other. So here's one of the things that Baba said: true love is unconquerable and irresistible. And it goes on gathering power and spreading itself until eventually it transforms everyone it touches. Humanity will attain to a new mode of being in life through the free and unhampered interplay of pure love from heart to heart. So there Baba is talking about there's going to be some work between us to be done. This is another quote from the Discourses, which is beautiful. To have loved someone is like adding another life to your own. Your life is, as it were, multiplied, and you virtually live in two centers. If you love the whole world, you vicariously live in the whole world. I'll read that one again. To have loved someone is like adding another life to your own. Your life is, as it were, multiplied, and you virtually live in two centers. If you love the whole world, you vicariously live in the whole world. So anyway, those are some quotes. I have other quotes as well, but I just want to see if anything occurs to anybody at the moment on loving one another, finding Baba another. Oh, Michael Childs. Okay, go for it, Michael. Uh-oh, are you folks hearing Michael? We're not hearing you, Michael, somehow.
How about now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Here's another quote from the Discourses. It's called From a Spiritual Advancement Through Married Life. And when I first read this, it struck a match. It lit me on flame. And I have a whole series of marriages to prove it. Because I was looking, I didn't understand what I was doing or where I was going, but I just was hooked by this, what he said. It was, he was saying in a sense that married life is a path to God realization without a master. And I'll read it to you and see if you think the same. In the beginning of married life, this is at the very end of the discourse, by the way. In the beginning of married life, the partners are drawn to each other by lust as well as love. But with conscious and deliberate cooperation, they can gradually lessen the element of lust and increase the element of love. Through this process of sublimation, lust ultimately gives place to deep love. There's a sentence missing on my page.
Ever deeper love.
Okay, because my printer didn't print it. And then my next word is deep love to ever deeper love. Till the possessive and jealous love of the initial period is entirely replaced by a self-giving and expansive love. In fact, through the intelligent handling of marriage, a person may traverse so much of the spiritual path that he needs only a touch by the master to raise him into the sanctuary of eternal life. And
beautiful.
I must admit that's been my path all these years. So in terms of finding Baba and others, I found that I came up with this adage that what comes out of your mouth determines the quality of your life. So that whatever we say, which means wherever we come from when we say it, determines the quality of the relationship. And when you have somebody else in your life who reciprocates in kind, then you can speak of love and it's reciprocated as love. And as I said before, I treat my partner as if I'm in the presence of Baba, of one of the Mandali. And she has never taken advantage of that. And in terms of a power relationship, which marks most relationships, we exchange it. that sometimes that she's in control and other times I'm not. And who's ever best qualified gets the position. The one thing, but when I was running workshops, I came up with a contract which people had to agree to, otherwise they would experience strikes. I gave them 3 strikes, or else I'd ask them to leave. And of them, it was arguing, self-defensiveness, backtalk, backbiting, unethical values and behavior. And I found that with my former marriages, the women weren't up to it. And I wasn't quite up to it myself because I didn't know exactly what I was doing or what was driving me. I couldn't articulate it, but they were all learning lessons. And this business about how we talking, a direct question, for instance, gets a direct answer, and being absolutely honest. And without that, there's no transformation. And transformation is when you're in a certain state, you have a certain fixed point of view about the ills or position in life or whatever it is, and it haunts you, and there's no breaking away from it. And to transform is to let that go. And to do that, you have to give up arguing and self-defensiveness. You have to be vulnerable. And you have to apologize for being an idiot when all the times you were below the line thinking that was the only mode of behavior. And we grow up in this atmosphere, in this world where these values are mixed. We have morality on one hand, but very little understanding of ethical behavior, of what it takes to keep our conscience clean. And what I discovered in my travels was that with a clean conscience, I have a connection with God. And when I don't, it's like the door is closed and I search and search for him. So that took me about 10 years to learn, among others. And anyway, we can discuss this further on, but that was the basics.
Yeah, good. No, and you're thinking in the context of a marriage, but very many of those things pertain to our other relationships as well, as you know. Anyone else venturing into this thing? I mean, how to connect with the essence of someone, so you're connecting essence to essence rather than personality to personality. The personalities may not mesh, but essence to essence always, there's always harmony in essence to essence, even though the personalities may clash at different times. But anybody, I know this is I was thinking this is like not an easy subject, but anybody feel like venturing in? I've got, I wrote down some things that, well, we got Tony Paterniti. He usually is a thoughtful guy. Well, here, we'll take it. Let's take it from, this is something that Erich said. This is taking, one of the things that keep us from connecting with people is we have these likes and dislikes. And so we are kind of judging people and we're not able to really to connect with them. But one day in Mandalay Hall, this guy said to Erich, there's some people I just don't like, he said, and a lot of the people in the room kind of chuckled and everything. But Erich was serious and he said, you may dislike somebody, but never assert that you have the right to dislike anyone. You may dislike somebody, but never assert that you have the right to dislike someone. So there's a key. Another, this is an interesting thing. There was a woman named Helen Dom, who's the one who painted the mural in the tomb. And she was like a bit of, kind of a bit of a manly lady. And Baba supplied her with cigars while she was off taking breaks from doing the painting. And she complained at one point about she couldn't get into the whole scene of all the women mandalay up there. That was just not her thing. And she complained to Baba, and Baba said to her, but the path is through people. So we are stuck of finding a way through to love through people. It's not just all an internal thing of finding Baba within, but also finding Baba within each other. But anyway, we got Catherine there.
Hey, J Bob, everybody.
Yeah.
I've been on a road trip and I just got back in time for this. So I'm not real prepared. But when you were talking to, I mean, gosh, Baba's message is love. I mean, love has been the main point in my spiritual path. So it does cover a lot of things. But the one, I guess it's a short quote based on the book Life at its Best. And it's just, I'll read that. It's, if understood, life is simply a jest. If misunderstood, life becomes a pest. Once overcome, life is ever at rest. For pilgrims of the path, life is a test. When relinquished through love, life is at its best. And I've just always liked, I guess it was a poem written by Baba. And I've always, that's just stuck with me for a very long time. And I think every line has been something I've dealt with, but I always had this message that it's through love that life is its best. And so, and I've had my ups and downs with that, I suppose. And, relationships, for instance, it's whether marriage or whether any kind of relationship is certainly a test, and it can be, and certainly will help you grow on a spiritual path. I agree with that. Now, whether or not that's what we need to do or whatever is just depends on each individual, but certainly loving people. And, I think I read, there was something about one of the Mandali, I can't remember which one, she was complaining, or she was just telling Baba, she was being honest, that she didn't like someone. And I want to say it was just another person, and that he would put people together that didn't like each other to work out the ego. But I remember reading something along the lines where he told her that you didn't really necessarily have to like them, that you just had to love them, that it was two different things. And so whether that was just a message that I needed at the time and it helped me with something, because there's some people that have not been very nice to me. And so it's hard, to like them. But I see their true self. I see that who they really are is who I love, but their bad behavior or something, I don't hate it, but I don't necessarily like it. And I just know that I call it the false self, and that they're sort of being run by their programmed mind. And so I can understand why someone might behave in a way that's harmful to me or to other people. And therefore I'm able to love them, even though I know they're doing things that are harmful to other people. But it's still hard, because I've had just people even in my own family that have been pretty harmful. So having to, I've had to really, there's been times where the word hate would come to my mind, I'm just like, I can't hate these people. I can't hate these people, and I really, really try. I mean, I have to, a lot of anger would come and everything, and I'd have to let that go. And I have to just really try to understand why they do what they do, and continue to love and and help in however way. And for instance, for recently, there's a certain family situation where I just turned to Baba, and I came from a very spiritual perspective and wrote a letter to a person who was being harmful to my family, and just said, just put it all out there, use Baba's name, and told him, I knew Baba loved everybody, and because of that, I loved him, but that I loved who he really was, and that hopefully one day he would understand that, and that if there's anything I could do to help him get there, that's my intention. But at the same time, what you're doing, and facing that what he was doing was harming my family and me, that, I wasn't going to accept it, that through love, I was going to fight and I used the word evil. I don't really like that word, but it was the best word to use to make him understand where I was coming from, and I was fighting it, and with love, because there's tough love too, it's not all just roses and pink hearts. And I think we all know that Baba's love is something beyond what we understand, and in a romantic way. So I don't know. I think I've covered the point.
How did he take what you wrote?
Well, that was yesterday. I haven't heard back.
Oh,
So,
this
we'll
reminds
see.
me that there are a couple of hands, but what you said reminds me of something. There was a woman named Agnes Barron who was up there on Mayor Mount, and she was, I think Baba called her his watchdog, but she could be a little bit abrasive to people, and she was opinionated and all of that. So she, she upset a number of people and everything. So when Baba went there in 1956, he was driving her back, driving him back to Los Angeles. And in the car, she said to Baba, what did she say? A number of people don't like me. No. Yeah, a number of people don't like me, but Baba in the car said, but I like you. If God likes you, well,
that's all that matters, right?
But anyway, this is connected with what you said. She went on to Los Angeles, and she had kind of a conflict with Ivy Deuce. There was like some tension between. And so when she went to see Baba, she was alone with Baba, and Eric was there, but she said, Baba, you said we should love everybody. I don't love everybody. What are you going to do about that? She was kind of sassy, but I mean, she had a great heart. I mean, she'd give the shirt off your back. But anyway, she says, what are you going to do about this? And what Baba gestured is, you may not like others, but you love them. Wait, how was it worded? You may not like everybody, but you love them. He was affirming that like what you said there, Catherine, you can love somebody without liking them. I mean, they rub you the wrong way or whatever. I mean, you try to work through that, as you were talking about, but it's possible to love somebody and to sacrifice your life for somebody, even though you don't, they're not one of your favorite people. So anyway,
Right.
So let's go to Elizabeth.
Okay, Jeff, I'm holding you to it.
Uh-oh.
That quote that you mentioned in Effort and Grace tonight, which I couldn't remember word for word, but it's Erich's quote. It says, when we follow the inner law, we do not need to set up regulations. It was something like that.
Yeah.
Can you restate it the way it actually is supposed to be? Because I want to write it down this time.
Well, this may not be an exact quote, but it's pretty close. A friend of mine, he saw over the years, there were all these regulations of policy surrounding the tomb. From the early days, and years would go by, it became a little more restrictive. And he complained to Erich about that. And Eric said, when people lose sight of the inner law, then we have to resort to these outer regulations. In other words, people were being a little bit noisy around the tomb, and it was distracting people from being able to be there kind of quietly with Baba. People were out under the portico talking and gossiping, whatever. So the Mandali were very interesting because they phased things in only when there was a consensus, that most people felt that this was now inappropriate. They didn't start with all these hard and fast rules to begin with. They phased them in when there was a consensus that this was time now to prevent people from playing a guitar right outside the tomb there or whatever. But we did that in the early years. Boy, we were in there playing guitar inside the tomb and writing letters and talking in there, all sorts of things, but we abused it. So
is there a description of, what do we mean by inner law? That's what is really, to me, important. What is inner law?
I think it's the sensitivity to others. That's the inner, inwardly that you're upsetting somebody unnecessarily. You can empathize. So empathy, as you might say, is in touch with the inner law of care and love and kindness, all that. Anyway, that was the kind of sense I got.
Would it also include respect for others?
Respect. Yeah, all of that. Now we got Joshua there.
Yes, I'm interested in hearing how other people manage to implement sort of their respect for others, as sometimes this is something I struggle with, but also sometimes not. But yeah, so I'm interested in hearing other people's techniques. I'll share my own first.
Yeah.
I like to, in the past, what I've done is I've tried to keep an understanding of sort of what I can control. And so if I know that someone's, not very nice, then I'll try and move myself away from them. And I try and just keep in my mind, what can I control here? How can I do this? And try and get what I can control, my responsibilities on me, and and then try not to get in their business and try not to change them, because I find it's so hard to control other people. That's for me, it's one of the biggest challenges. I don't think I've ever done it successfully. It's just trying to get a simple person to do what I want is not easy. So yeah, so basically I don't know if that's come across, but yeah, interested in hearing how other people can love those whom they cannot love.
Yeah, that's the tall order from Baba. Yeah. One of the curses and the curses of the Baba people, myself included over the years, is being critical or judgmental of others. And how do you deal with that? I found my own way, and maybe I'll get into that later, but how not to be judgmental of others so that you can actually enjoy their company, but anyway, I won't go on to that at the moment, but okay, maybe I will, because I don't see any other hands. What I had to do when I started working at the center, I thought Baba would gather here the cream of the crop of humanity. And I found out this was a cross-section of humanity. From miser to philanthropist, from saint to scoundrel, from the whole family is here. So I learned that rather quickly. So what I had to do is if I was going to enjoy all these people, and I do now, but it took me about 20 years to lower my expectations of others so that they could be themselves and I wouldn't react to them. I mean, I'm talking about, I really worked at it. It was a whole, and so, and then once you kind of enjoy your fellow Baba lovers, it brings out the best in them. You know what I mean? They actually, they change around you, and so you can have more fun. So that's expectations that we place on others that are impossible. And, you know, because someone's going to violate at some point your expectation. Someone's going to take the mic when you wanted to sing, you know, and, or whatever. There's all sorts of things. And Baba has in his family every combination, every type. So anyway, that's just one, I'm giving you one example of how to connect. Later on, I want to ask Terry about that one guy that came in to have dental work. But Rainey.
Hi, Jeff.
Good.
You were asking me about how to love one another, and I was in the same situation as you were for 12 years of being very young and people coming and having to meet and greet or cook for them or cook tea for them or interact when they really couldn't care less about us workers. They'd come there to see Francis or find out about Baba from Francis, not from us. And I think of a story of I might have told it here before, of a famous hip journalist from one of the old rock scene, very big rock scene in Australia, and or maybe an alternative magazine. Anyway, he came along and he looked spectacular. You know, he had long hair and a Spanish black hat and a cloak, and but not, he didn't have affectation. He was more like a bohemian, but dressed like that, but young, kind of probably old to us. He was 28.
He came to Avatar's abode.
At Avatar's abode.
Yeah.
We're talking about 1971, 72 here. Very early days. Francis went up there, you know, in September, approximately August, September 69, after leaving India. So anyway, this guy comes along, because various ones knew who he was. And you know how it is, the thing that drives me nuts in the Baba world, when they're famous, oh my God, the waves part. But anyway, the waves parted. Oh my God, I couldn't care less. I'd rather respect so-and-so with their 7 kids in a flat, thanks. But anyway, he arrived, and so immediately he was invited to lunch. That was unusual. And of course the lunch, well, I don't know what he thought about the lunch. It was the mushed up vegetables with a musher from the night before, with lots of butter on a big slab of bread, and the vegetables and salt and pepper. And this was the big Sunday luxury lunch. So he had lunch with us. He just gobbled this down. He loved this. He thought this was great, and a lovely hot cup of tea. And then Francis asked him, was this a journalistic interview or was he curious about Baba? And he said the lot. And he was kind of beautifully spoken, like our Josh. He had a very beautiful, our Josh incidentally is beautifully spoken, if you haven't noticed, Auntie. Anyway, he was very respectful to Francis, and Francis was very, what can I say? Not shy, almost shy around this man. Not a lot to say at all. I think possibly because his father was a journalist, I don't know. Anyway, so off they go, and he takes him into Baba's room, and we're clattering and trying to be quiet and do the dishes and things, because everything was in the one huge house at that point. And they go in. Well, apparently the story goes after, when they were in there, and Francis showed him each thing, the car handle that Baba had held on to, the soap he had used, the little brooch the women had made with out of Baba's fingernails, forming an intricate heart, like an Italian bead work, but with Baba's fingernails. Baba's face cloth, his soap, his pillow, his towel, his tea towel, his china, everything used to be in the room then, till a couple of things got pinched. And this guy then and they get outside. He sees everything Francis does. He doesn't do everything Francis does, but he does kneel in front of the bed and then comes back out. And then suddenly he just said, where we could hear him because we were getting ready to do play practice or something, I guess. He said, "You absolutely have to be kidding me. This brilliant, brilliant man, this poet, and you keep somebody's fingernails in a bar of soap? And I've come all this way to see fingernails in a bar of soap. I just can't. Can you explain any of this to me?" And Francis said, "Well, were you ever in love?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "And would you now love to have a lock of her hair if she had passed?" And he said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, it's like that." He said, "But this is supposed to be a master, an avatar." He said, "No, but the love is not like that. The love is like the pure love of the beloved who you fell in love with, who you adore, who once she passes, you want a lock of her hair. That's how the love is." So anything that was around him, it has to be there. It represents that love. It is that love. And this guy got very emotional. And Francis looked over at me like, "Make more tea." And he sat down. He was very quiet. And he just sort of fit in. He fit in for about an hour, came back in with whatever we were doing, and sat there and sat next to Francis. And they were discussing. Francis might have been pointing out a bit of the song or a bit of the play, I don't know, or plans. And he just didn't want to leave. He couldn't disengage.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And it was that he was incredibly brilliant. I forget his name. I wish I could think of it. They're hounding me to try and remember it. But all his brilliance, all his extreme magazines and essays and articles fell into the love. He fell into it. It was tangible. Nothing had to be said. And he stayed the afternoon and left at about 5 p.m. to catch his bus back to Brisbane, and I suppose a train, I don't know.
Beautiful. No, wonderful, lovely story. And, you know, how could you explain? That's the best way it could be explained, why all these things are kept. I mean, if the guy, if you said you had all these things that Jesus had used, you might have been able to relate to that.
Well, that was interesting. He didn't go there because this guy was a bohemian. He was probably curious why such a brilliant poet would be religious in the first place. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
Australians are not predominantly Christian anyway, so one would not automatically go there. But he didn't do that. He just behaved exactly as he would have if Baba had been, well, Baba was there, and that's how he behaved, and the man experienced that.
Beautiful. I wanted to ask Terry. Terry, I've asked her to share something because this is the kind of thing in loving Baba and others or loving others. This is the type of thing that you come up against and how you have to kind of deal with these things.
Jai Baba, everybody. So this past week, I had a patient. I'm a dental hygienist, and I had a patient that it's the second time I've seen him only, and it's in a short period of time. I had a lot of work to do with him. And the first time, he was literally, I really cajoled him and tried to, you know, we had jokes going back and forth, and he was so erratic toward me and borderline abusive that I didn't know how the hell I was gonna like put him back in the chair, get like, you know, I'm so close to people, get that close and take care of him basically. It was really, really difficult. But I did it, and he came back this past week for the second treatment. And I hated that first time so much that I asked Bubba what I needed to do. You know, how could I make this work? And what my intuition said is just love him. just pour love into him. You don't have to respond to anything that he does, just love him. And I felt like Bubba was pouring it into me and I was pouring it into the fella. And
And a guy that was really just obnoxious. I mean,
so obnoxious, so
Yeah.
harsh.
Yeah.
I mean, to have to be that close to someone that hard to be with. I mean, and I'm not the only one in the office that saw it. They all see it, but they just kind of shine him on. And that's not my personality to shine someone on. So I tried to.
what does shine someone on? What does that mean?
They just don't pay attention. Like the front desk will make them the next appointment and, get the money that they need, but they don't interact.
Okay.
It can be brief and then they just send him on his way. And
Yeah.
the doctor just puts stuff in his mouth and, doesn't pay attention. But part of my deal is relationship is not just, I can't just be robotic. It's not my nature. So if you have to engage with someone like that, you got to figure it out, and this is how Bubba told me to do it. And when he left, it was such a different feeling than it was the first time. Like he still was abrasive, but I don't know, I guess I kind of just felt bad for him. I couldn't even imagine being in a body like that and in a brain like that. And I feel like the pain that he had made me love him even more somehow.
Yeah.
And since then, you don't know this, Jeff, but I have little prayer books and little things I do. And I've been sending him love, since, through the cosmos kind of love, but I've been sending him love energy, because I feel that he really needs it. And I got plenty of it. So why shouldn't I share it?
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard to move from being critical to somebody to having compassion for them or empathy. I mean, that's a big turn when that's a qualitative change that, I mean, and you may appeal to Baba and he gave you the compassion for him rather than being negative, critical of him, which is.
And it wasn't easy.
Yeah. And that's Baba's victory. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, because that's part of the struggle. Catherine.
I think Michael was first.
Oh, Michael. Yeah, go ahead,
Yep.
Michael.
Oh, okay. I will. Thank you, Catherine. Well, I've brought up my father quite a bit. And when I was 37, I stood up to him. When I was 45, I finally recalled the moment or the time when he beat me practically to death and how I had hated him all those years, made him wrong. Father shouldn't do that to his kid, blah, blah. And I say that blah, blah as in just another position of right and wrong that I lived my life with. And I was ready to actually have the whole world go in flames because of injustice and bullying. And it affected my political life and my personal life. And yet at the bottom was my fear of standing up to him and recalling what happened. And beyond that, once I discharged the pain of that through copious weeping, because in all those years of making him wrong, I'm the one who died. And what I recovered was this little boy in me, which loved my dad, absolutely. There was no judgment as a little boy, as an infant, 3 years old. He was perfect. Didn't matter what he said or whatever, I just loved him. And there I am at the age of 54, so, and I'm looking at all this, and all the years that I wasted making him wrong, all the years I didn't paint, all the relationships I torpedoed because of the positions that I had evolved over this pain and the fear of confronting him. And at the heart of it all was a little boy. And I happen to love that little boy. And I could see the little boy and my father. I could see what circumstances had done to him. And even though he may have been an a-hole and even talked to me in an abusive, bullying way, as an adult, as a grown-up child, I didn't have to agree with him. I could just say, look, I love you and I don't agree with you. And you shouldn't talk like that. It never occurred to me to ever do that before. And I remember when Donna and I first got together back in 09, 10, 09, I said, you should get married. Now I love Bao like I love God. I would look at Bao sometimes and I would just say, when I see you, I see God. So when he urged me to get legally married, I wrote back and I said, well, financially, it's not feasible, and she doesn't want to do it. Donna didn't want to get into another relationship where I might turn into a typical male asshole and tell her what to do and control her life. And she liked being the single woman. She liked loving me without the confines of marriage. And as far as I was concerned, and she was concerned, we were married. It didn't matter whether we were blessed by a legal document or not. And Bao had to change his position about marriage to the extent, because he believed that if you were married, you had to stay married, come hell or high water. And that's just terrible for the children. It's a terrible example to set. It may be good for your pride. I stuck it through 63 years. But the truth is, if you don't really love each other, what's the point? And Kitty realized that. But Bao came face to face with that when Donna and I were together. And he blessed our relationship. And at one point in the trust compound, he announced that Michael is married. It was so funny. It was so unprepared. The other thing that came up earlier, I just wanted to point out that if we treat each other according to the gospel, whatever you do to the least of my children, you do so unto me. I mean, if we're mindful of that, the world will transform. And then if we realize we're all God's children and we don't have to like each other, but at least we can listen to each other and we can work together. And that's what we have to do to create a new humanity. So the lessons have been good over these years. Chibaba.
Okay, yeah, we've got more time here too. So Catherine.
Okay. Well, part of what I was in listening to everybody's story, and I mean, I can relate to. I mean, in just the cycle of dysfunction and trauma in families, and how that if we don't do what we need to do to heal from that, in general, the programming and the cycle continues, and so realizing that, you know, I have family that have been abusive and that they had parents that were abusive, and all that definitely helps. But also getting my own therapy and dealing with that helped me so that I didn't do it. But I still find myself behaving in ways that the ways that my parent kind of programmed me to be. Just very one was a perfectionist. You know, it was like walking on eggshells everywhere. And so I have to really work on myself not to be critical of other people when someone's trying to help me or something like that, you know. I can my mind will just, and I have to let it go. But the other part about loving that I find, especially from the poem about life at its best, and then, you know, relinquish through love, life is at its best, that, you know, you question, well, why do we have to love each other? You know, what's, you know, besides it just sounds, it's what Baba wants us to do. I mean, it seems that I have found that when I really try to raise myself up and sort of kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but just have this sort of loving attitude towards life, towards everybody, just out in the day, 24/7, that life is better. I mean, things happen to me that are better. If I'm in a bad mood, then that's when I'll probably get a speeding ticket. You know what I'm saying? So it's just putting it out there, and just loving all the different problems that there is, and that as you just continue to love and love and love, just and I don't know who it was, but it was a book about learning to love, and then just putting a smile on your face is like the first step. You know, fake it till you make it kind of thing, and just putting that attitude out there. That I can tell a difference when I'm doing that, and that people respond to me in a totally different way than if I'm kind of coming across, or I have a negative mindset, or I'm, you know, I've got a frown on my face or whatever. So the point about loving each other is that it's going to be better for everybody if we do. So in that, even if somebody's really, and I know it's hard when you're angry and you've been hurt really bad, but that, and there was something about fear or something, that, you know, you can't fight the anger or the fear with anger or fear. It just is going to make it worse. So you have to use love in order to overcome any of that. And so that's just what I was getting with that poem.
Yeah, what you said reminded me of something that Erich used to share, and it was a turning point for him. There was one guy that would come to Baba and prostrate before him and show all this devotion and all of that. But again and again, he would come and Erich just felt this guy is just, it's not genuine. He's insincere and fake. And it always kind of bothered him, but he didn't say anything. But on one occasion, Baba, pointed out, well, what are you thinking? And Baba says, no, and Erich says, Baba, you know that he doesn't mean this. He's just doing it for show and all of that. And so but this is what Baba said. I see his life, and you don't know how far he's come just to be this bad. You don't know how far he's come just to be this bad. And Erich, he kind of realized, well, I'm just not seeing the whole picture. I'm just seeing one little lifetime, and didn't, see that this guy has actually improved from his previous lives. But Baba has that perspective, so, and, but yeah, Mahu.
Okay, yes. This is an actually interesting discussion and subject. It's a practical discussion. Basically, I think we cannot control how people feel, how they think, how they behave, and how they react to certain, action or talk and so forth. We just cannot. People come just the way they are. So as us, we go in as the way we are. Being connected to Baba, we all come with a different samskaras, different impressions from past lives, and that itself creates certain characteristics about us, certain character traits, a way to live our life and so forth. But I also learned that, Jeff, you said when you came to Meher Center, it was a very interesting combination of people. You just thought that Baba has gathered cream of the crop and, all people with all kind of samskaras And, and of course they had to work with it together or converse or whatnot. I don't know what the relationship was at that time. But there is a reason for that, because sometimes through that unpleasant conditions, we tend to grow. We tend to grow more than the normal circumstances, together with like-minded people, or people that think and and act and as spiritual as we are, and so like that. No, sometimes the adverse circumstances help us more to grow more and more. And Baba talks about it in different places. And he said, well, people say, well, wait, Baba, didn't you say you're a Lord of love? Why do we have suffering? And Baba said, because if your life is like that, fine and dandy, you would not learn. You get your comfort zone and you just don't grow. So those are necessary for your path. Yeah. So there are a reason. Yeah, Baba bring all this interesting people together under one ceiling, be it a Baba worker, being a spiritual worker, brother and sister, mother and son, mother and daughter, whatnot, co-workers, workers, all kind of people that somehow Baba designed for us to be in touch with. There is no accident. It's definitely his design, and that's my faith. But I like to read something from Darwin, Darwin Shaw, since we're still fresh on Effort and Grace meeting. So in one, this quote, Baba says, and of course Darwin says, in essence, we must let everything pass through and become satisfied, to dwell within the grace of the Master and be supported and sustained by his love and grace. This is much better than preserving the ego, right? Darwin Shaw. Yeah. So Darwin clearly taught to us in a very simple word that let it pass through love and bring his love and grace and compassion into equation is much better and perhaps easier than we are trying to preserve our ego. I said this is what I meant to say, and you don't understand me. And this goes on and on and on, right? Yeah. Another thing I like to share, and this is all I owe it to the Effort and Grace and Darwin Shaw's book, and I actually only joined the half of this last round, but I benefited a lot. One thing I learned, and Darwin talked about it, is about healthy boundary. Darwin talks about the healthy boundary and says you could put a healthy boundaries when you come across the unpleasant situation that you don't have to tolerate or get along with. Just put a healthy boundary, and I just like that very much. And without even reading about him, I started putting that in my life as of, I would say, 4 or 5 years ago, because this is the life we have, and our time is not unlimited. We have a limited time, and we know the goal to love God and become one with God. Now, there are circumstances in life that might cause waste of our time and, just being, unhealthy thought to us, unhealthy behavior, and so forth. Why do we need it? We don't need it. Baba never said to start, get along or have a relationship with people that they're not sensible, right? Or they don't want to take their time to bring themselves to your level and understand you, and on and on and on, and they forget why they're We can try, and if it doesn't work, we can gently and lovingly step aside and let the master take over. We give it to Baba. Baba, beloved Baba, you say, do your best. Don't worry about the result. I did my best. Apparently it's not working. So here's yours. You handle it. We can do that, like that. Jai Baba.
Yeah. You know what? There was one thing that that Darwin used to say, which is it's possible to be inwardly love someone and externally keep a distance. It's not being insincere, but someone may be drunk and you can know that you love them, but you can pick them up on another day after they sober up. You don't have to embrace them on the day when they're drunk, or whatever. So he makes a distinction between keep the heart open, but you can keep a physical distance or an emotional distance, but not a loving distance. That's because what he would say is, whoever you close down to, you diminish yourself by that much. If you don't like, these people that are in this political affiliation, then you're actually diminishing yourself. It seems like, no, you're, but at the heart level, keep the heart open. Anyway, we got, I don't know who came, we'll go back, we'll go to Rainey here.
Because Mahu said us, the word us. About 4 years ago, the word us took on a completely different meaning for me in a found song after my musical partner died, Sam Saunders, in a piece out of Stay With God that he tuned, put to melody, that was lost. None of us had ever heard it before, and it wasn't that old. So I'll just read it because it has a beautiful us last few lines. It's from Stay With God. It's just 8 lines. I have it on the fridge. I have it in my car. I have it in my wallet.
Can you, besides reading it, are you able to sing it, or did the melody?
I'll sing it
survive?
a cappella when I finish reading it.
Yeah, good.
Because it's just 8 lines. Thou stone cutter and gem cutter, thou potter and breaker of pots, thou upturner and returner, thou upheavaler and leveler, thou bender of what is straight, and thou straightener of the bent, thou barber, thou lovely woman, and glory man and child, thou moon night, thou star night, thou dawn swept of stars, thou morning of sun, thou alone doer, thou adorable and adored, thou us, thou us, thou us.
Beautiful. Oh,
I must have read this book 20
achingly
times.
beautiful.
That little section never leaped out at me before, because I was always swept away with cease, swallow thy breath every moment, which is the next page. I don't know how it never leapt at me. It takes, a musical genius, I guess, to have leap. And it's just simple to 2 chords or something. Thou stone cutter and gem cutter, thou potter and breaker of pots, thou upturner and returner, thou upheavaler and leveler, thou bender of what is straight, and thou straightener of the bent, thou barber, thou lovely woman and glory man and child, thou moon night, thou star night, thou dawn swept of stars, thou morning of sun, thou alone doer, thou adorable and adored, thou us, thou us, thou only alone self, thou us, thou us, thou only alone self, thou us, thou us.
Beautiful. Very touching. I want to, before I go on to you, Michael, I want to see if we can elicit. Goer, does anything just come to mind in this, just off the top of your head?
Oh, nothing in particular. I've been so enjoying everybody's stories. Well, the only thing I can say is that we do often have challenges, you know, in life that we come across, people that instinctively something comes up and we don't like, for instance, and I don't know why that happens sometimes, but it does. And that's happened to me. But in the end, if we just remember that Baba is in each one, then we know how to handle it. It immediately comes to you how to handle it. And whether you keep your distance from that person, as you said before, you know, emotionally, or just keep that person at a physical or an emotional distance, if that's what it takes, you can still go on loving them from within. And that's how you handle it. And I've had family members too that have been very difficult to deal with for years and years. People that have, you know, very close to me, family wise. And it often bewildered me as to, you know, how can they be like this, knowing Baba, knowing his teachings. And I would even say that to them, this is not how you're supposed to be. But then immediately I would realize that's not in my control, is it? It's who they are. So let it be their problem with Baba, not make it mine. So for me, it was just that I would go on loving them from within and doing my best for them and let Baba deal with the rest.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, yeah.
That's the only
I
way
mean,
to do it.
The way I kind of look at it is we all have this kind of, well, I don't know if you want to call it a wall of sun scars.
Mm-hmm.
And your sun scars may be harmonious with someone this hour, and then 3 hours later, you may shift over, your sun scars may move over to something that now is dissonant with that person.
Yes.
You know, and then it may fall and sync and in unison, and then it goes out.
Yes.
And that's just bound to be there, meaning the samskaric reaction is not what's really real. It's you think that you're going to be able to stay, your samskars are going to be able to stay harmonious with somebody for years and years, but it's continually shifting.
Yes.
But the love behind it doesn't change at all.
Yes.
And there's a line of Baba's. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to finish by saying what Mahu said was very true too, that very often when you come across a chronic situation like this that keeps going on, and you cannot, you know, whatever you've tried to do to stem it, to have it come to a harmonious conclusion, it just doesn't work. And it keeps happening like this. And you ask yourself, finally, you have to turn inward and ask yourself, why is this happening? Even though I'm trying this and this and this and nothing is working. So then the light bulb goes off. Aha, maybe it's a lesson for me. Maybe it's something I need to learn from this situation. So when you look at it from that standpoint, your whole perspective changes, and you begin to realize that this person is there in your life for that reason alone, that, you know, that you need to grow in this particular instance or in this particular aspect of your life. So once you realize that, then it just comes to a full sort of what can I say, a wonderful conclusion to the whole
Yeah.
thing. And you've grown and you've learned. So
Yeah, that's the attitude that Baba encourages in us. You know, what is the lesson in this
in this, what
for
am I?
me?
Exactly.
There's a quote of Baba's that I found back in the 70s, and I used to keep it in my wallet
Mhm.
until it eventually shredded. But this is what Baba said, and I found it rang a truth in me that I always felt this had to be true. And this is what Baba said: all differences between one another
Mhm.
are merely superficial.
Mhm.
Male, female, Jew, Christian, all that. All differences between one another are merely superficial and cannot affect the love we feel for each other deep down. Meaning that we already love each other. And it's just a matter of the clouds dispersing, the clouds of sanskaras dispersing. It's not that love grows, it's that the sanskaric veils part, and we see that we have loved each other all along.
Right.
But so if I run in, so the way this translates on a practical level is, if someone doesn't like me, I inwardly I say, no, they love me and I love them.
Mhm.
Rather than I got to earn their love. The love is already there. So then how can you move away the stuff that is blocking that truth?
Mhm.
It's a different approach, rather than, oh, I got to gain their love, I got to win their love and all that. The love is already there. And that is a real, that answered a real, made things really positive. It made the negative or the conflictual relationships, put it in a positive context.
Mhm.
The love is already there. Just a matter of time. Anyway, okay, we're gonna swing back to Michael Childs. Uh-oh, we can't hear you, Michael. Nope, still can't hear you.
Okay, how's that?
Got it. We got
All
you.
right. I love getting older. I just screw up all the time. So I have a paraphrase from Discourse on Love that I read in 1974. I only saw it in one place. It's in a book published by the Bombay Center. And it's where Baba says, in essence, there are 3 stages to love. One is when the heart is in conflict with the heart, when the mind is in conflict with the heart, sorry. The second stage is when the mind is in a state of confusion regarding the heart. The third stage is when the mind is in harmony with the heart and it produces a form of super consciousness. And that really intrigued me. Because see, if you dislike somebody, but you like it from the inside, that would be somewhat the first stage. And then if you lie about it, says, I hate you, I can't stand you, and in your heart of hearts, you love them, that would be an example of that. And being confused would be, I don't know whether I love them or not. And the fear, well, if I love them, then I have to listen to them, I've got to obey them and be subjugated again. On the other hand, I love them. So there is a lot to it. My life has been about going through these stages. And this poetry that I came up with was when my mind did blend with the heart. Even though I wasn't aware of it, I didn't look into a mirror and say, oh, now your mind's blended. Hardly. So this one is about, I call it my wife. I wrote this in 1989. And I've had 3 major relationships since then. But what I write about her applies to my wife now, except in one small detail. And in one sense, it's almost embarrassing that I should feel the same. But it's just miraculous on the other hand. My wife, there is something about her when she sleeps that pulls my heartstrings. I trace her jaw and mouth like an artist. If I drew it, the line would be too harsh. How could I portray the softness and the down that adorns her cheek? If I sculpted it, the stone would be unyielding, cold, quite unlike her warmth. How could I duplicate her smile? I kiss her cheek and say, I love you. She turns and smiles. There it is again, even in deepest sleep, and says, I love you too, drifting back into the folds of dreams. Words cannot describe her voice, her myriad of looks, that glimmer of sunshine in my heart, and her smile. A song would capture some of the emotion, but not the whole tantalizing, three-dimensional, living, breathing, day-to-day adventure that is hers, nor the electricity of her touch. Thus I content myself to observe her, enthralled and in wonder, marveling at the unfolding of a person who is as vast as the universe is to me. Michael says, Lord, I was not destined to have your embrace in this lifetime. Thank you for giving me a part of you to love instead.
Beautiful, Michael. Wonderful. What a great sensitivity and love. That's beautiful. Let's see. Yeah. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
have you read that on another occasion. That's well worth hearing again. Okay, let's go for Elizabeth.
So I'm responding to what you and Gohair were talking about when you're in conflict or their perceived conflict. To me, there seems to be like several ways of trying to figure out what to do. One is if you believe that what the person is saying to you, like if they're angry or major disagreement or whatever, if that person says something about you that you need to look at and change because it's really true and it's something that needs to be moved in a different direction. The second case is when the person says something and you realize that it really isn't about you, it's about something that they're perceiving that may not be true or might be due to something going on inside of them. And then the third one is when you come across a situation and you're confused as to which it is, and you're trying to figure it out. And that is the most confusing. But anyway, I'd be interested in any comments about any of those.
No, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, those are three situations, and it's hard to separate them out. So you get the third situation where you don't know which is which. The one thing that I got from Erich, basically, well, I won't go into the whole story, but he said, basically, don't have a problem with problems. Don't react to your reactions. In other words, that you might react positively to something someone says, you might react negatively to something someone says, you might react confusedly to something someone says, but don't react to your reaction. Just try to get some space between your reaction and your consciousness, if you can, and wait to see what love suggests to do, what Baba suggests to do. And that's hard to do. It takes a long time to get some space between your consciousness and your whole reaction modality, you might say.
So how are you doing that? Or I'll ask the whole group so you don't feel like you're on the spot. Yeah. How would one do that precise thing, particularly when you have the instance of the confusion as to whether it's something that you need to pay attention to and change to be a better person, let's put it that
Mhm.
way, or whether it's something that, I mean, you can fall into a habit of thinking you have done everything and that anything that's negative is your fault.
Yeah,
And
sure.
that is also an ego problem. That's like similar to, I think, the inferiority, superiority issues. You don't want to be one or the other. You want to be
Yeah.
different from that. But anyway, I'd be interested in understanding how others may do exactly what you just said.
Yeah, let's see, any takers there?
I'll chime in. I don't know. Um, that's a big issue that I've had, and I like what what you were saying about don't have a problem with problems, and because I for a very long time I had a lot of problems with problems. I didn't like them, I mean, I was frustrated. I didn't understand why my mind would drive me insane, just one thing after the other, and just all these things, and it would just be so. I could tell my mind was the one that was having the problem, and so then taking that and trying to understand what Baba was saying is that, and the other part that you were mentioning, Elizabeth, is with the opposites, the positive and the negative, and that what I finally got was that I was making a problem out of things when there really wasn't a problem. It was just life. It was just, that's just one thing after another's happening. And it was my judging it to be a negative versus something that I thought was positive. And so that's what made my mind so critical about things, was because of the judgment of the opposites. And so then it was just like, this is just something. I woke up today. What happened? Oh, well, the tree fell down and it broke the window. Okay. So in the past, just like, why do I have to do this? Oh my God. And it was just like, my mind would just make me miserable because I had to fix the window. But now I'm better at just ignoring the critical mind. And as I ignore it, it's not so bad anymore, and so I can tolerate that there's things that, what is the saying, the only thing constant in the world is change. And so if we're so frustrated with the fact that something's going to change, then that's going to be misery. So in helping myself to accept whatever, it's just, okay, we're getting at, what do you got for me, Baba? What do I need to do? And that everything I'm doing is more and more focusing it on Baba, rather than letting my mind make its judgments or be critical or do this or do that. And that definitely helps my sanity to see it that way.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that Eric was saying, that there are problems in life. You're not going to get a problem-free life, but when there are no problems happening, enjoying the fact that, hey, there's a period where there are no problems happening, rather than, oh my God, there's a problem lurking around the corner. It's just, but to say that, you're going to get a flat tire on the way to the movie that you wanted to see. And it's, these things happen, but then there are times when things are going smoothly, and to embrace that. But you're not going to get a life that doesn't have problems, but they don't have to be continuous problems. The mind, what is it? Pain is inevitable. Misery is optional. It's one of those AA sayings. Suffering is inevitable. Misery is optional. Let's see. Let's see if there's anyone. Let's see if we can kind of see if there are any of these other folks. We can get them out of the shadows. Anyone else that wants to chime in? I mean, this is a massive subject, but there are little keys that Baba gave and the Mandali gave that can help us in, in interacting with others, so that it's more harmonious and not not something that creates a separateness between ourself and others. Let's see, should I just go ahead and I'm going to ask Joshua, any of this, anything that comes to you?
No, not really. It's well, I mean, it's just hard, that we're facing some difficulties, but you just try and be thankful. I like that what they said about not having a problem with problems. Really, if I could get that one under control, then I'd have no problems. Yeah, it's
it took me about 40 years with Baba to get that one, or maybe 30, and it's still not perfect. But here's a thing that Darwin said that I found very, very valuable. When one truly loves, one does not have to have that love reciprocated, because one is already experiencing fulfillment. When one truly loves, one does not need to have that love reciprocated, because one is already experiencing fulfillment. I mean, that is a valuable key. Because sometimes we love somebody and, well, they're not doing their side. They're not loving enough from their side. You know what I mean? You get into that, well, I am putting all the love out, but if you're really loving, it's its own reward. It's a privilege. So that's one of the things that Darwin was good about. And here's another one that Darwin did. He said he would look on everyone as a potential spiritual aspirant. Wherever they were, they are, they're a potential. And that one other thing that I found very helpful, and I've actually seen it, is everybody, this is one way of looking at things. Everybody is Baba in disguise. And that can actually become a real thing, not just some exercise or thing, where you look at somebody and you think, wow, there's Baba as that ignorant guy over there, vacuuming a corner of the room. I mean, you can kind of see that your beloved as this maintenance person over there vacuuming. I mean, if that becomes a little bit real, it touches the heart. They're not some, person from another planet, so to speak. They're brought into Baba's reality, Baba's orbit, you might say. Anyway.
No, it's true. And my mind needs those little tips and tricks, because all my problems are caused from my mind just like going in and getting all these attachments to things. So it needs all these games and things like, imagining that person's to Baba and thinking, and, just saying Baba's name, or just doing all these other tips and tricks to make it forget its expectations, as you said before earlier, when you were talking about expectations.
Yeah, sometimes you can be in the mall and you see somebody walking by and you think, wow, that's Baba walking by. And when you have that thought, that person looks over at you. It's like, wow, Baba in that person just turned around and looked and kind of acknowledged the truth of that. Anyway, the little things like that happen. Anyone, I got Michael here, but I want to just see if there's any other. What about Ganesh? Did anything occur to you?
I'm just enjoying listening. So today it was like whatever everybody shared is so profound. And all I can say is, like, the weekend I was in Mehrabad, so my mind is blank right now. And I'm just enjoying listening here. So it's just blank because I spent my weekend at Mehrabad.
Oh, beautiful. And you got a haircut too as well.
Yes, yes, trim my hat.
Oh, good. Mayor Chand.
Hey, Jai Meher Baba, Jeff.
Yeah.
Actually, I just got two quotations, one from Darwin and other from Baba during second Andhra trip.
Yeah. Read
Where
them
Baba said
slowly.
about the,
Read them slowly though. Yeah.
yeah. What Baba said is, for the common man, the most practical way of loving God is to help others lovingly. Again, I'll repeat. For the common man, the most practical way of loving God is to help others lovingly. God is in everyone. So if you try to love others, help others, make others happy, you are then loving God. So even attending your duties of everyday life, you can still love God if at least some of you try to love God by coming here with worth purpose. It was during from Lord Meher first edition, 4341.
Beautiful.
The other one is love and brotherhood. Darwin Shah had written that he was hoping to establish a retreat for Meher Baba in America. Baba wrote back, whether that retreat on the earth is established or not, I do really appreciate the spirit of love and brotherhood that has been awakened and considered it as a spiritual retreat already established within, which is much more substantial and real than any earthly home or structure. The true spirit is there already awakened, and if you foster and keep up the warm feeling of love and brotherhood, it will eventually bears the result, and that will help in the development of spiritual understanding of life and things pertaining to life. And whatever such spirit of love and brotherhood exists, the inner light and guidance invariably follows. This is from Lord Meher, first edition, 1969. Jai Meher Baba.
Beautiful. Yeah, back in the 30s, there were all these people that had come to Baba. They wanted to create a Baba Center. This is back in the 30s, and they went around looking at different properties and everything. And years went by, nothing kind of gelled. But they had this yearning to have this center. And but Baba wrote that in response. You have already created the inner center. That is the real one. And those who are united in spirit know no separation, Baba wrote. But it's interesting because then years later, the Mayor Spiritual Center came into being. And Darwin was one of the main people. Baba said every inch of the center is filled with the love of Elizabeth, Norina, and Darwin. And I think maybe Jean, I can't remember, but Darwin. So it did eventually even manifest as the center here. Okay, let's see. So I have no idea. Oh, I was checking so Michael.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I've noticed when people were speaking, there was confusion about how they felt. And Elizabeth used some choice words, which are words reflective of the mind. And I realized that it's important to go through the stage of confusion where you ask yourself, what is it I'm saying? And what is it that I want to convey? What words really resonate with me? So if you, what I've learned is that if you compare things, bigger, smaller, tall, small, whatever, compare better, like better person, that these are words from the mind. And I call them knowledge with a small k, and of the nothing. So it's like you'll never get an answer, because it's like the universe. It goes on and on and on forever, and it goes around pretty much in circles. But the soul is absolute. So the experience of the soul can be conveyed with other words, which are important to learn. And you have to find your own words. Excuse me. I once got into a high state on my boat, and there was this golden presence in the boat. I realized it was Baba, but at the time, it was about several months before I came to Baba, so I didn't know what the name was. And I picked out words from this essence. And I don't remember the verse, but I was so happy with that verse. And I only remember one word from it, quietude, which I'd never used before. The state of being quiet. So you might have to go to a quiet place without distractions, without the drama of problems to solve and fires to put out. And find out what your words are. And then start speaking them, incorporating them in your speech. Because we're all poets, and the language of the soul is poetry. And I mean, we know from Rumi and Hafiz and Tagore that you can't describe life, you can't describe this experience directly, but through metaphor, and there are words that convey it or evoke it in others. And I believe that that is the path of the new life, of the new humanity, to awaken it in others. And if you listen to little children, they come up with the most poetic things. I remember I don't know if you know San Francisco, but there's a hill leading from the Golden Gate Bridge up a hill, and it overlooks the entire San Francisco Bay. And my son, my oldest son, who's now in his 40s, said to me, the world must have been full of milk when God was young. I mean, how did he had a new brother in his life, and his mother was nursing him. And he made that metaphoric shift from his mother to the bay and milk, and he could see it. And so a lot of these questions would disappear and be replaced with, how do I express this? What's a good turn of phrase? Does this work? And because, when I read my poetry to you guys, I edit it in my mind and I ask myself, is this really true for me? And then when something isn't, I go down and I make a note to change it. And I've been doing that for years, so that it's just you. And these exercises I came up with, I call them an integrity exercise. I just want to mention it briefly, that integrity means to be one. It comes from the word integer. So to be one in your mind, your heart, and your soul is, to me, the connection with Baba. And if anything pleases him, it's that conscience. I mean, we screw it up, okay? We make mistakes and we get to clean it up, because that's what we do. So, but the striving for this integrity, I believe, leads us to being one with the oversoul, since we're just, little drop souls as it is. So that's all I wanted to say. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, I'm thinking it's getting kind of late. I would like Rainey to sing that song once again, and if you don't mind, and then we'll have a few moments of silence. And then Catherine's cat will say the Master's Prayer.
I did think of something that's in the East-West gathering where all of the groups came together, from East and West for the first time, and there was a lot of love, and it was incredibly exalted and high, and also squabbles and so on. And there's a great little line in the 8 sorts of lovers, which is, I love the 8 sorts of lovers. Anyway, Jung would have loved the 8 sorts of lovers. But anyway, he talks about workers, and they greet the rising sun. They build arbors and shrines. They welcome visitors, Jeff. They tell them that maybe they can have a sight of the king someday. They hold great meetings and conventions, and they call one another important worker and great lover. But this is just because at the beginning they're over serious. But in actual fact, they're like children, and they quarrel a lot, but they sing sweetly together in simple unison. And I think that's the important part, particularly as we age, and people we didn't like, we suddenly in an instant can see something in them we hadn't seen before, and the dislike is forgotten, and only the love remains. And someone we didn't like, the dislike is still there, but we do see something that we ought to have understood more kindly. So I love that little line. They quarrel a lot and sing sweetly together. When we sing it to the public, we say they quarrel a bit and sing sweetly together. Some people in the chat had asked about personal love as well, and I'd highly recommend in the Awakeners, I put the address there. This old Awakener is You Who Marry Today. So the Awakener magazine is online. And so if you go to You Who Marry Today, the Awakener magazine, it will come up. It's about being with somebody and washing the heart glasses clean of even the stains before the wine can be poured in.
Beautiful. Before you sing, here's just one hint from Erich. It's to think that everyone is in you. I mean, it takes, real audacity to think that everybody is in you. It's like your hands, it's like your all the fingers on your hands are in you. I mean, they're all, you can say, oh, the thumb is separate from that finger and all that, but that's all imaginary. Everybody is everybody else, and we're all in each other. So that, that type of thing, it's not to be intellectual, it's eventually to be experiential. And, I should say this, that when Baba's birthday at Merazad, they would wake up and they would say Avatar Mir Baba 7 times in Baba's bedroom. Now, normally when Erich and Mani and all the Mandali saw us when we came to Merazad, they would embrace us and say, Jai Baba, Rainey, Jai Baba, Josh, Jai Baba, Elizabeth. But on the morning of Baba's birthday, Erich, the residents would, the Westerners and the different people would gather in Baba's room. He would go around and embrace each one, and he would stand back and he would say, I love you, Baba. And then he would embrace this one. I love you, Baba. So that can be done. I mean, that is within, we're being moved to that eventually. so that it's really our beloved in all the different shapes and forms. Okay, so how about singing that song? You're kind of dark there, but
I know, I don't know how to.
kind of like a nightclub or something you got going.
I only have a lamp in the bedroom, not.
Okay, yeah, that's all right.
Okay. Page 62 from Stay with God. Thou stone cutter and gem cutter, thou potter and breaker of pots, thou upturner and returner, thou upheaveler and leveler, thou bender of what is straight, and thou straightener of the bent, thou barber, thou lovely woman and glory man and child, thou moon night, thou star night, thou dawn swept with stars, thou morning of sun, thou alone doer, thou adorable and adored, thou us, thou us, thou only alone self, thou us, thou us, thou only alone self, thou us, thou us.
Beautiful.
Have a few moments of silence. Jai Baba. Thank you for all sharing. I mean, this is something that we ought to revisit because there are a lot of different aspects. Yeah, Terry, yeah.
I just want to say, Rainey, that was like a beautiful lullaby. It was just so beautiful. Thank you so much.
He just
Yeah.
did a wonderful, his wife, his widow, Gerd, found it and sent it and asked, had I heard it? And I said, no, never. And then she finally found even chords put on top of it and the recording of it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And,
Very
and
nice.
the
Thank
beautiful-
everybody. Jai Baba.
Thank you, Jai Baba.
Yeah.
Jai
Thank
Baba.
all of you. Yeah.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Avatar,
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Jai.
Avatar Meher Baba
Meher
ki
Baba
jai.
Jai Baba.
Then we have to have Nasreen. Nasreen has to be the final Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Okay. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Jai.
Right.
Thank you,
Wonderful.
Jeff.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Baba.
Jeff, so what's the topic for Tuesday night?
Oh, hey, yeah, while you're there, I was trying to think. I mean, this was a kind of a something that popped into my head, but I don't know if it would be any, what can I say, whether it would ring a bell, is people bring the photograph of Baba that they like most and why they like it. I mean, I don't know if that's, I mean, what you know, like someone may have connected with a certain period of Baba's life, you know, or, I mean, I don't know. Does that sound like something you guys could get into?
Yeah,
Sounds
that would be
lovely.
good. Sounds lovely.
The one that, you know, has, or it doesn't have to be just one. It could
Yeah,
be,
I was just gonna say, it could be several.
yeah, but you know, because sometimes the certain photographs tie into your life, the period
Yes.
of life when things happened, or I don't know, that was just popped in my, I mean, I was just walking in the hallway and that it just came. It would be really nice.
Yes, I think so too.
And, you know, you don't have to feel like you have to say much, you know, or prepare any talk, you know, this is, you know, this is one that I like very much when I do these things.
Mhm.
When, you know, because, I mean, it's like so reassuring, like, okay, Jeff,
Mhm.
you're, you know, don't worry, you know, this is going all right.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's all good, like the modern expression. But yeah, that was so good. That would, I'm glad that you, what do you think, Ganesh?
Yeah, that's really nice. The
You know
photograph
what
that
would be
connects you.
nice too sometime is Ganesh put together a book on Baba's grace. And it would be nice to, and then he could be there and help kind of host the thing. I mean, we'll find the time that works for you, but I mean, that's a very, I mean, grace is a much, I mean, we have all these quotes of Baba's, but what is grace and, or how do we experience grace? So that's something we could have in the offing out there. But if anybody has a topic that you think people could get into exploring and looking at and sharing, I'm open for it. I'm open to it. You know.
I think for Tuesday night, this topic on Baba's photos is really good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Bring the ones
Yeah,
that you like, and they don't have to be just very, like I say, they don't have to be just, it doesn't have to be just one. And don't feel, if you come, you can come and just enjoy seeing that. You don't have to feel shy, you know, I mean, you don't, there's no compulsion to have to do it. You can just, you know, look in and see what other people's other people's choices are, favorites. Okay.
Jai Baba.
Our feet are stained.
Jai Baba, auf Wiedersehen.
Jai Baba.
Baba.
Jai Baba, Jai Baba, Jai Baba.
Yep. See you, Peter. Yeah.